Oh my God. Are you Disney?
She was also just a spoiled, entitled, narcissistic brat.
Then they got even crazier and they decided that the dwarves in Snow White weren't woke enough, okay?
Modern empowered Snow White won't even allow domestic labor.
We can't have a woman holding a broom. Not that Rachel Zegler would know what to do with the broom.
And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White.
She was handpicked by Steven Spielberg, hailed as the future of Hollywood, and crowned the voice of a new generation. But just a few years later, Rachel Zegler isn't trending for her talent. She's trending for walkouts, backstage feuds, and one meltdown after another. The same actress once praised for her raw emotion is now being quietly flagged by insiders as a high-risk hire. Directors have stopped defending her. Castmates are asking to be moved away from her. And behind closed doors, producers are having conversations most stars don't survive. What happened to the golden girl of Gen Z? Why our entire production?
She has been sabotaging this film for years at this point.
Falling apart when she steps on stage? And more importantly, why does she keep rewriting the story to make it look like someone else's fault? This isn't just one bad project. It's a pattern. And if you haven't been watching closely, that pattern is getting darker. Before the walkouts, the backstage drama, and the social media damage control, Rachel Zegler was the Hollywood success story. Plucked from obscurity at just 17, she didn't land a role. She landed the role. Maria in Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story. She hadn't done a single movie. She was found through a viral video audition posted on Twitter. And just like that, a teenager from New Jersey with no Hollywood ties became the face of one of cinema's most iconic love stories. Critics raved. Her voice, flawless. Her presence, magnetic. Spielberg himself called her a once-in-a-generation talent. It wasn't just hype, it was a prophecy. Suddenly, Zegler wasn't just a breakout star. She was the chosen one. Magazine covers, award show invites, a fan base that idolized her not just for her voice, but for her politics. Outspoken, progressive, fearless, she wasn't afraid to speak up about social issues, gender inequality, or the toxicity of Hollywood itself. She became a symbol, young, bold, and unapologetically vocal. But here's the thing about meteoric rises. They leave no room to learn. Quietly. Every move is watched. Every word is dissected. And in Zegler's case, the industry wasn't just watching, it was betting on her. After West Side Story, the offers poured in. A Disney princess role, a major superhero film, a West End debut. In 2 years, she was signed onto more legacy franchises than most actors see in a decade. But success, especially at this speed, comes with weight. Expectations skyrocket. The spotlight grows hotter, and the pressure to deliver, not just artistically, but professionally, starts crushing even the most grounded performers. Still, in the public eye, everything looked perfect. She posted gratitude-filled captions, gushed in interviews, seemed thrilled for every new challenge. But behind the scenes, something was already shifting. The people who worked closely with her began noticing things. Mood swings, resistance to direction, moments of emotional volatility that didn't always stay private. Nothing explosive, nothing career-ending, just friction. And if you've worked in entertainment, you know, that's where it usually starts. Because when someone rockets to the top without stumbling, people don't ask if they're ready. They just expect results. And Rachel Zegler, ready or not, was being handed the keys to an industry that doesn't slow down for anyone. Landing the role of Snow White should have been the ultimate win. It was Disney's crown jewel, a timeless fairy tale, a legacy character, and one of the most coveted lead roles in Hollywood. For Rachel Zegler, it was a chance to cement her place among A-list royalty. But instead of a career-defining moment, it quickly turned into one of the most disastrous press tours the studio had ever seen. It started subtly. A few interview clips where she questioned the original story, then a few more where she joked about how weird it was that the prince kisses a sleeping woman, and finally, the now infamous soundbite, "I wouldn't be caught dead waiting around for a man to save me." The message was clear. Zegler wasn't here to honor the original. She was here to rewrite it. The backlash was immediate. Traditional. Disney fans felt attacked. Comment sections filled with thousands of angry replies. Critics began asking why someone who seemed to resent the character was even cast in the first place. And Disney? They went quiet. What should have been a magical rollout turned defensive, with the studio scrambling to refocus the narrative. But the damage was already done. What made it worse was Zegler's tone. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Sarcastic, detached, like she was above it all. For audiences who grew up loving Snow White, her comments didn't feel like empowerment. They felt like mockery, and the more she spoke, the deeper the divide grew. Internally, Disney was rattled. Executives had banked heavily on Zegler's appeal to younger audiences, but instead of building bridges, she was burning them, sometimes without even realizing it. Even casual viewers, people who had no deep love for the original film, started tuning out. It wasn't just a creative disagreement anymore. It was a branding problem. And this wasn't a one-off slip. It was the first public sign of a larger pattern, a disconnect between how Zegler sees herself and how she's perceived by the world around her. A gap that would only grow wider with her next major role. Because if Snow White was a warning shot, what happened on the stage of Evita was something else entirely, a full-blown implosion, playing out in real time. When Rachel Zegler was announced as the lead in Evita, on London's prestigious West End, it was seen as a power move, not just for her career, but for her credibility. This wasn't a blockbuster or a CGI-heavy spectacle. This was theater, raw, live, unfiltered, a return to roots. A test of skill, not spectacle. And at first, everything looked perfect. Zeglers called it life-changing. She gushed about honoring the legacy of Eva Peron, and her social media filled with cryptic but poetic captions about transformation, legacy, and rebirth. Interviews showed a bright, grounded actress eager to dive into the role. The press bought, and fans were excited. Even skeptical Broadway veterans were cautiously optimistic. But once rehearsals began, the tone shifted. Insiders say it wasn't long before tension started brewing. At first, it was small things. Schedule conflicts, emotional off days, vocal adjustments. Then it escalated. According to multiple sources, Zegler reportedly began challenging director Jaime Lloyd's creative decisions. She pushed back on blocking, questioned line delivery, reinterpreted songs that had already been finalized. And while artistic input is normal, expected even, what insiders noticed wasn't collaboration, it was resistance. The rehearsal room, known for its intense but focused energy, began to fracture. Zegler was allegedly late more than once. Sometimes she arrived with a small entourage. Other times she'd offer vague apologies like, "I'm emotionally drained today," before slipping into rehearsals with noticeably different energy than the rest of the cast. It wasn't diva behavior, not yet. But it was disruptive. Cast members reportedly began asking to be repositioned to avoid interacting with her directly on stage. Others requested mic-level adjustments, claiming her vocal improvisations were drowning out ensemble harmonies. She was doing her own thing, said one technician, and it made it impossible to sync. Director Jaime Lloyd, known for his intense but collaborative process, found himself spending more time managing Zegler's emotional state than shaping the actual production. And in theater, especially on a schedule that demands cohesion, that's a problem. Because while talent can carry a role, it can't carry a fractured cast. And what was meant to be Zegler's triumphant debut started to feel more like a slow-motion derailment. But the real chaos hadn't even begun. Everything came to a head during a critical full-cast run-through of Evita's final scene. The lights were up, the cast was in place, and the rehearsal clock was ticking. But Rachel Zegler wasn't happy. Not with the staging, not with the lighting, not with the mood. According to multiple insiders, she refused to perform until a lighting cue was changed. The room froze. The crew scrambled. But before the adjustment could be made, Zegler reportedly picked up her things and left. No meltdown, no shouting, just gone. What should have been a turning point in the show's development instead became the moment everyone realized something was deeply wrong. This wasn't a case of creative tension. This was a breakdown of leadership. From that day forward, director Jaime Lloyd reportedly stopped speaking to her directly. All communication was filtered through his assistant or the stage manager. A quiet, unmistakable sign that trust had been broken. In professional theater, that kind of silence between a lead and a director is a red flag. Backstage, whispers turned into strategy sessions. Producers, once proudly name-dropping Zegler's involvement, began holding private meetings not to polish the show, but to figure out how to salvage it. Legal advisors were consulted, rehearsal logs reviewed. One insider claimed producers began asking for a moment-by-moment breakdown of how and when Zegler had disrupted rehearsals. And then came the final straw. During a lighting and blocking session, she allegedly refused further direction and walked out. Again, no explanation, no warning. Halfway through rehearsal, the lead was gone, quietly, calmly, like it was routine. For many on the team, that was the moment they stopped hoping things would get better. That wasn't the behavior of someone having a bad day. It was the behavior of someone who didn't want to be there anymore. One technician summed it up. You can't build a show around someone who refuses to be part of it. And just like that, what started as a dream role became the epicenter of a production in crisis. The moment Rachel Zegler walked out of that second rehearsal without a word, the atmosphere in the production shifted completely. It wasn't a shock anymore. It was resignation. The cast stopped looking for answers. The crew stopped expecting apologies. Everyone began quietly preparing for a version of the show where the lead might not show up at all. Director Jaime Lloyd, once Zegler's biggest supporter, was done. Communication remained silent. Feedback was filtered through third parties. And in a rehearsal room that thrives on collaboration, that silence was deafening. Rehearsals grew colder. Ensemble members whispered between cues. What had once been a promising, high-energy environment became fractured, uncertain, and tense. Behind closed doors, the production team began crisis managing. Legal teams combed through Zeglers' contract. Could she be replaced? Could they cut losses without inviting public backlash? One producer allegedly began contacting casting agents discreetly. A short list of potential replacements was discussed. Nothing official, just in case. One insider revealed producers weren't even refining the show anymore. They were documenting it. Every skipped line, every late entrance, every walkout. It wasn't about improving the performance. It was about protecting the production. Even longtime allies of Zegler began to question whether her presence was sustainable. And then came the calls. Quiet, back-channel conversations across London's theater scene. Casting directors warn each other. Agents asking careful questions. She's talented, one West End producer reportedly said, but there's a difference between vision and volatility. What stung most wasn't the chaos itself, it was the reputation damage. Theater runs on relationships, and Zegler's relationships were unraveling. Directors began quietly advising others to proceed with caution. Choreographers flagged her name for potential friction. Even hopeful young performers, those who once idolized her, started watching with fresh eyes. A vocal coach said, it best, she's teaching a masterclass right now, just not the one she thinks. The damage wasn't in headlines or viral clips. It was in the quiet spaces where future decisions are made. Casting rooms, crew meetings, producer dinners. And in those rooms, the buzz was no longer about Zegler's talent. It was about whether she could be trusted to deliver under pressure. And that's a question no PR post can fix. As the Evita drama leaked into public view, many expected Rachel Zegler to speak up, clarify, or even apologize. She didn't. Instead, she pivoted. Social media posts turned poetic, filled with cryptic captions like holding space, truth in discomfort, and creative silence. There were no names, no details, just vague reflections framed as emotional growth. To fans, it looked vulnerable. To insiders, it looked rehearsed. This wasn't Zegler reacting to backlash. It was Zegler rewriting the script. Again, just like during the Snow White controversy, when she dismissed the prince and sparked outrage, she didn't retract. She reframed. She turned criticism into a broader conversation about feminism, storytelling, and outdated expectations. It worked. The press softened. The internet moved on. Now with Evita, the same playbook appears to be in motion. A quiet shift from accountability to artistry, from disruption to emotional sensitivity. But there's one problem. Live theater isn't built on curated Instagram posts. It's built on presence, consistency, and trust. As one cast member put it bluntly, we didn't get the vulnerable Rachel. We got the curated one, the one already thinking about the caption. The concern isn't that she's emotional, it's that her emotions are weaponized as defense. Critics aren't buying it. Insiders see it for what it is. A narrative shift, not a genuine reckoning. And in an industry where trust is everything, perception is no longer on her side. Not long ago, Rachel Zegler could do no wrong. She had Spielberg's seal of approval, a Golden Globe win, and a fan base that treated her like Gen Z's answer to Audrey Hepburn. But the mood has changed. And not just online. Inside the industry, casting conversations have started sounding different. From West Side Story to Shazam to Snow White and now Evita, there's a pattern that insiders are no longer ignoring. Big roles, big headlines, bigger problems, whether it's PR meltdowns, creative clashes, or emotional walkouts, Zegler's name now comes with an asterisk. Proceed with caution is a phrase being used more often than anyone expected. And it's not just directors or producers raising concerns. Even agents are reportedly shifting strategy. Instead of blockbuster auditions, Zegler is being positioned for indie films, artsy festival projects, and small character-driven roles. Not because it's a natural evolution, but because it's the only safe route left to rebuild her image. That shift matters. In an industry obsessed with momentum, perception is everything. And right now, Zegler isn't seen as a bankable lead. She's seen as a risk, a talented one, yes, but a high-maintenance, unpredictable one. And in live theater, where precision and chemistry are non-negotiable, that's not a small issue. It's a deal breaker. Even rising actors who once saw Zegler as a role model are quietly taking notes. As one Broadway vocal coach put it, her journey is becoming a lesson, not in fame, but in how quickly goodwill can evaporate. Hollywood doesn't blacklist overnight, but it does start watching more closely. And right now, Rachel Zegler is being watched, not with awe, but with hesitation. Rachel Zegler still has everything it takes to be a star. Raw talent, striking looks, emotional depth, and a loyal digital following most actors her age could only dream of. But none of that matters if the trust behind the scenes has eroded. Because in entertainment, success isn't just about what you do on camera. It's about what people say about you when the cameras are off. Industry veterans are asking a new set of questions now. Not, can she act? But, can she collaborate? Not, is she bankable? But is she manageable? Because being difficult doesn't kill careers. But being difficult without results, that absolutely does. And that's the uncomfortable truth Zeglers is facing. Her team insists she's simply evolving, that these roles were stepping stones, not missteps, that she's finding her voice in a ruthless system. But insiders aren't so sure. They're not hearing growth, they're hearing excuses. Evita was supposed to be the reset, a return to pure performance. No CGI, no franchises, no edits, just a stage, a spotlight, and her voice. But instead of redemption, it became a cautionary tale of what happens when talent clashes with structure, when vision refuses to adapt, and when vulnerability is confused with evasion. The problem now isn't that she's failed. It's that the pattern is becoming harder to deny. From Shazam to Snow White to Evita, the same narrative keeps emerging. Tension, backlash, then poetic deflection. And each time the industry grows, more skeptical. Hollywood still wants Zeglers to succeed, but Hollywood also has a short memory and a shorter tolerance for repetition. One more failed project, one more PR spiral, and the industry won't be waiting for her to explain. It'll already have the answer. There's a moment in every rising star's career when the spotlight stops illuminating and starts burning. For Rachel Zeglers, this might be that moment. She wasn't just another newcomer. She was chosen, backed by Spielberg, handed legacy roles, gifted a platform most actors work decades for. And yet, one by one, those opportunities seem to be slipping through her fingers. Not because she lacks talent, but because the chaos is becoming louder than the craft. In West Side Story, she was the promise. In Shazam, she was the asterisk. In Snow White, she became the headline. And in Evita, she became the warning. The narrative keeps shifting. First the system, then the press, then the audience, then the creative team. But eventually, the spotlight turns inward. And when that happens, it stops asking who's to blame. It starts asking, is it her? Rachel still has time. One standout role, one graceful comeback, one season of humility could flip the script. She could become a story of resilience, not resistance. But if the next project ends the same way as the last three, the industry won't need another poetic post to understand what happened. It'll already know, because at some point, even the most loyal defenders stop listening to the explanation and start remembering the pattern. So what do you think? Is Rachel Zeglers just misunderstood in an industry that resists strong voices? Or is this the fallout of unchecked ego and self-inflicted chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you made it this far. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next chapter in this story might just blow everything wide open.